of the jungle. Eat or be eaten.
We have 4 missing soldiers, Captain, and no bodies.
Is there anything I can help you with?
I'm not gonna piss you about, Huey. I heard what happened to Robin.
We've come here to find a way through to China and India.
There's a lot of soldiers out there, and there's only 4 of us.
Some films disturb us because they imagine horrors. Others disturb us because they expose the ones humanity tried to bury. Across jungles where hunger becomes law. Across military bunkers, secret laboratories, and remote corners of the world. There are stories where the human body is transformed, consumed, weaponized. Tonight we unlock 5 works that examine the darkest intersections of survival, science, and the limits of the human soul. 5 stories where soldiers become monsters, victims become experiments, and hunger becomes a haunting force that rewrites the rules of existence. These are not just films, they are warnings, reminders that under the right circumstances, anyone can be pushed beyond humanity. And what you're about to hear might make you question how far human beings have already gone. Because sometimes the most terrifying experiments are the ones history almost forgot. And in each of these stories lies a truth more disturbing than fiction. Number 5, Cannibal Holocaust, 1980.
New York City is only a day away from the green inferno of the Amazon jungle.
A film so disturbingly realistic that a court demanded proof the cast was still alive. A story that blurred fiction and reality so effectively that the horror was no longer on screen. It was in the audience, in the media, in the legal system itself.
What I'd like to know, Professor, is what did happen to my son?
Cannibal Holocaust follows a group of documentary filmmakers who disappeared deep inside the Amazon. Months later, only their footage returns. A shaken rescue team retrieves reels of film caked with mud, blood, and fragments of jungle decay, revealing everything the original crew never lived to explain. At first, the filmmakers behave like explorers, then like manipulators, then like colonizers with cameras instead of weapons. They burn huts, harass villagers, stage violence to provoke reactions they can sell to television networks. But the jungle does not forgive intrusion, and the tribes they believe to be primitive soon become the enforcers of a brutal justice that predates every modern code.
See that? We're near his village. You can already smell his own.
The cannibalism in this film is not random savagery. It is ritual. It is symbolic. A method of restoring balance after outsiders pollute sacred land. The filmmakers believe they are documenting savages, but the footage reveals they are documenting their own cruelty and the consequences. The military angle is subtle, but chilling. The Western crew behaves like soldiers occupying foreign soil, believing they have the right to control, provoke, and rewrite narratives for their own gain. Their arrogance becomes their undoing. And then comes the scandal that made the film legendary. When it released in 1980, the violence looked too real. So real that director Ruggero Deodato was arrested and accused of producing a snuff film. To avoid prison, he had to summon the actors, alive, to walk into a courtroom and confirm they had not been killed, butchered, or eaten. The world realized something terrifying. A fiction filmed convincingly enough can become indistinguishable from truth. And if a camera crew can become the villains in their own documentary, how many other real narratives are created the same way, shaped by those who hold the camera, not those who live the reality? But some footage should never be found. Number 4, The Terror, 2018.
That is how you already see it. In need of saving. I do.
A series where the cold becomes a living enemy, where hunger whispers in the dark, and where the last thing a man sees might be the face of a friend, turning into something desperate, hollow, and willing to consume him. The Terror chronicles the Franklin expedition of 1845, one of the most tragic and mysterious journeys in naval history. 2 British ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, set out to conquer the final unknown passage in the Arctic. They never returned. The series traps the viewer with the crew in a frozen maze of endless white dunes, cracking ice shelves, and nights that stretch for months. The air is so cold it crystallizes breath before it leaves the lungs. Food rots, morale collapses, Disease spreads through the decks like an invisible fog. What makes this depiction disturbing is not sudden violence, it is decay.
They can have it after I build us a road out of here.
The slow erosion of civility, the creeping madness that comes with starvation, and the brutal isolation of a world where nothing moves except the wind and the dread inside their minds. As supplies dwindle, the men face impossible choices. Some dream of warm meals and family dinners they will never taste again. Others stare too long at the bodies of the dead, their hands trembling not from cold, but from temptation. The cannibalism theory surrounding the real expedition is controversial, but evidence uncovered in the Arctic supports it. Bones found on King William Island show cut marks, signs of butchering no animal could have produced. The military aspect heightens the horror. These were trained naval men, disciplined, uniformed, loyal. They marched into the Arctic as symbols of empire. But the ice stripped them of rank, order, and identity. Nature does not care about medals or flags. It devours everyone the same way. As the months stretch into years, the crew begins to fear not only starvation, but each other. Hallucinations, mutiny, frostbite, and desperation blend into a nightmare far more haunting than any ghost story.
Though cleave from the frame that carried them, yet live, nearest to their rank.
And when the final survivors stagger across the ice, skeletal and half-mad, the viewer realizes the real monster of the Arctic is not mythical. It is hunger itself, and the ice was only the beginning. Number 3, Ravenous/Vorace, 1999.
Captain John Boyd is about to discover
no one just ends up at Fort Spencer.
A film where cannibalism is not only survival, it is transformation. A feeding that strengthens the body, sharpens the senses, and awakens something carnivorous inside the soul. Ravenous begins during the Mexican-American War, a conflict already infamous for starvation, isolation, and soldiers pushed past their limits. Captain John Boyd is a coward in disguise, promoted only because he survived a massacre by pretending to be dead under a pile of corpses. When the truth is uncovered, he is sent to a remote mountain outpost, a banishment, not an assignment. The landscape is brutal. Snow as deep as graves, silence heavy enough to crush the mind. A handful of soldiers stationed at the edge of civilization, all of them half-broken already. One night, a stranger named 𝐾𝐿 stumbles into the camp, shivering, bloodied, nearly frozen. He tells a story of a wagon party trapped by a storm. Food ran out, people died, and the survivors did what they had to. The soldiers mount a rescue mission, but the truth unfolds like a nightmare. 𝐾𝐿 is not a victim, he is a predator. He learned that consuming human flesh gives him strength, speed, clarity. He returns to hunt soldiers, devouring lives to amplify his own. This is where the Wendigo myth emerges, a creature created not from transformation alone, but from choice. A man who eats another man becomes spiritually infected, carrying the hunger of those he consumed. Boyd realizes the implications. Eating human flesh builds the perfect soldier, a warrior who heals instantly, who never tires, who grows more powerful with every kill. A military advantage so grotesque that no nation would ever admit to seeking it. And yet, throughout history, there have always been rumors of armies driven to extremes during harsh winters. The film blurs the boundary between myth and military horror. The American frontier truly did produce incidents of cannibalism during desperate times. The Donner Party, frontier slaughterhouses, frozen outposts where no help came. Ravenous asks one question: if eating another human being could keep you alive, how long until survival turns into desire? Boyd's final confrontation with 𝐾𝐿 is not about life or death. It is about identity. Which man will consume the other? Which one will reject the hunger? Which one is willing to die to prevent the birth of a new kind of soldier? Their struggle ends as a blood-soaked metaphor, two men crushed under the weight of their own monstrous potential. Because hunger always comes back. Number 2, The Boys series.
A fucking job to do.
I'm invincible!
A world where the military does not wait for evolution. It manufactures superhumans, not with training, but with chemicals. Not with discipline, but with ruthless experimentation. The Boys exposes the horrifying truth behind Compound 5, a military-engineered serum designed to rewrite the human blueprint. It transforms babies into living weapons. It rewires adults into volatile super creatures. And every enhancement comes with a cost: psychological, biological, moral. The disturbing element is not just the violence, it is the systemic manipulation. Parents signing contracts without understanding. Politicians approving classified projects. Corporations treating human beings as patents, products, assets. The cannibalism here is metaphorical but cutting. The system devours innocence, replacing it with engineered aggression. Children become prototypes, soldiers become experiments. No volunteers needed becomes the silent motto. Inside Vought's laboratories, scientists conduct trials with cold precision. They inject, measure, observe breakdowns, document fatalities, and move on. The military motive is clear: a genetically modified soldier who cannot be outgunned, a deterrent that terrifies enemy nations, a weapon that bleeds only when the corporation allows it to. History echoes uncomfortably close. The CIA's 𝐬𝐻 experiments, behavioral modification projects, drug trials on soldiers, classified biological enhancements, real attempts to manipulate human potential, often without consent. The Boys simply pushes those truths a few steps forward, asking what happens when the ultimate weapon becomes uncontrollable, when the experiment feels pain, makes choices and desires power of its own.
I mean, why would you get into this business if not to save the world?
Every enhanced human becomes a living symbol of the same nightmare, a body that no longer belongs to itself, a life rewritten in a laboratory. And the next weapon might already be alive. Number 1, Overlord 2018.
1,000-year army needs 1,000-year soldiers.
A descent into the deepest horrors of war, where Nazi science fuses corpses, chemicals, and cruelty into an army that refuses to die. Overlord begins with a thunderous fall from the sky. American paratroopers drop behind enemy lines to destroy a radio tower before D-Day. But the mission unravels when their plane explodes, scattering survivors across the burning wreckage of occupied France. The village they enter is too quiet, too restrained. Something is wrong behind every shuttered window. Soldiers patrol the streets with a strange stiffness, as if listening to instructions no human voice could give. Below the village church, the truth waits in the dark. A secret laboratory filled with tanks of suspended bodies, some alive, some dead, some twisted into shapes no human anatomy book has ever shown. Screams echo from deeper chambers, syringes full of glowing serum-lined metal tables. Nazi scientists record data with clinical excitement, as if mutilation were just another formula to solve. The serum they engineered can resurrect the dead, but it does more than revive. It enhances, mutates, creates soldiers with impossible strength, uncontrollable rage, and a hostility that surpasses human instinct. The transformations are gruesome. Bones snap and reform. Veins bulge like living wires. Blood flows backward. What rises from the table is neither man nor corpse, but a new species of warfare. This is not far from reality. Nazi doctors truly conducted experiments involving stimulants, injections, extreme temperature endurance, and attempts to create soldiers capable of functioning beyond normal limits. The Third Reich sought a superhuman army. Overlord imagines the nightmare version of what they might have found. The American soldiers face a terrible dilemma: use the serum to survive or destroy it and risk dying normal deaths. One of them is injected. The result is horrifying. Strength beyond comprehension, pain replaced by mania. He becomes a monster no army could control. As the church collapses in flames, the surviving soldier realizes that if this serum escapes into the world, war will evolve into something unrecognizable. A battlefield of resurrected soldiers, endless combat, and armies made from pieces of the dead. He buries the truth beneath rubble and fire, praying that no one digs it up again. Some things should never be resurrected. These 5 disturbing stories explore the same terrifying idea, that humanity can be twisted by hunger, by isolation, by ambition, by science, by war. Some armies tried to create monsters, some men became monsters on their own, and some victims were transformed against their will. But this is only the surface, only the films that dared to show us what manipulation, starvation, and experimentation can produce when pushed too far. If these films disturbed you, wait until you hear the stories that were never meant to be filmed at all, and the darkest stories are still classified.